I usually do presentations, but I just kind of enjoyed last week's open Q&A. And I was talking to one of my clients yesterday, and I want to talk more about like the things we run into with training. And I kind of want to just give some background on my story, and then I just want everybody to kind of either throw their 2 cents in or ask questions. So tonight I want to talk about like identity crisis, and then giving purpose to our training. So I started lifting weights when I was 10. So I've been in a weight room. I'm 36 now. So I've been in training for 26 years. So I've had many phases of, I guess, a career in the weight room. I originally got into it. My dad bought Muscle and Fitness posters. They're still hanging in his basement. We have stacks of magazines that I read and just consumed this stuff. And then I started training for football in middle school, and I was a 4-sport athlete in high school. And then sports ended. My identity was I was an athlete. It's all I knew was I was an athlete, but nobody ever set me up for like, hey, sports are going to come to an end. Here's kind of what you need to do. So I stopped training. And this is when I started a band, and I was in a band for 4 years and lived that rock and roll lifestyle of just everything that was kind of involved with that. So I started kind of forming bad habits. So I was diagnosed with ADHD. I used to always blame it on my ADHD. I no longer say, oh, it's because of my ADHD, because I feel like that I'm giving power to that, and then I lose control. And it's almost like an excuse. Oh, it's because of my ADHD. I never learned how to like use my brain that I was born with. They just put a label on it. Here's some medication. Good luck. They didn't give me the tools that I needed. And I've had to figure it out on my own. And what I realized is that when I was in the band and my life was just this constant party, the thing that was missing was training. And I've noticed that through each segment of my life, when things seem out of control, my training is out of control. I'm not training. I'm not doing the things that I normally do on a daily basis. Training, I always come back to. Right. So I got back into training after the band. Started powerlifting. That's when I changed my career. I was a paramedic, pre-med, changed the career to being a strength and conditioning coach. And I started competing in powerlifting. Well, here it was. I went all in on being a powerlifter. What I was actually doing is that now I get to look back, as I was actually avoiding the things I needed to do. I was getting wrapped up in identity as an athlete, wrapped up as a powerlifter, instead of being wrapped up as who I am as a person. Right. So I was so wrapped up in powerlifting, did that for a while, got injured. And then I went back to what I did when athletics finished. I went back to drinking and just doing that type of lifestyle. My training went to the wayside. Injuries had piled up. I didn't trust my mind. I didn't trust my body. And so I went back to what I knew. Got back into training again, started running, did a trail race 3 years ago, tore my meniscus. So there's just this down and up flow that I've dealt with training and my identity. And then since the past 3 or 4 years, 4 years, December 2018 is when I almost did take my life. But what I realized is that I wasn't doing the things that I did like that gave me purpose, right? So my training didn't have a purpose. Yes, I was a power lifter, I was an athlete, but I wasn't me. And that's kind of like the work we do in this group, is we help figure out who we are, what we want, what we're doing and trying to get out of life. So I did sign up for a 10K trail race. Now, yes, I am now a father and I'm a husband, and that should be purpose enough for my training. But like my training used to define who I was. So a lot of fitness pros are like, their whole life is training. And they'll be like, oh, it's so easy. Just find time to train. And they forget like we're actually human beings. So my training used to define me instead of just being something that added value to my life. And then when it defined me and who I was, I started to fight against that, because it's not who I really was. I wasn't a power lifter. I just liked lifting heavy. I wasn't an athlete. It was just something I did because of my ADHD to get my energy out. More of I was just a boy with a lot of energy. So the work I've done over the last 4 years is figuring out who I am as a person, right? We get to choose our identities, but I was using training as almost like a coping mechanism because I didn't know how to deal with my brain. I wasn't given the tool. I'm called neurodivergent. I don't have a neurotypical brain. So I've had to learn these tools that we talk about in here, the reading, the breathing, the writing, the talking amongst friends, to help me evolve into who I am. But training is just part of that process. So right now, my training has purpose is that I've always been like, you should be prepared for anything. And I was training that way, but I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't competing. I wasn't powerlifting. I wasn't running. I wasn't doing anything. So I just felt kind of like I don't know. I just didn't feel true to what I was saying. I was saying one thing and doing another. I wasn't I wasn't walking the walk. It was all talk, right? So that's why I signed up for it. I still don't trust my body. Like my mind and body aren't on the same page right now. My mind does not trust my body because of injuries I've had from everything. So part of my prep is to get us on the same page. So now my training has purpose again. It's like, I believe you should be able to be ready for anything. I have to go do those things. And I wasn't doing those things and challenging myself and putting myself in hard positions. And my training did go to the wayside the last couple of months. Now, obviously, like, we had a kid. We had the 1 month stay in the NICU. Like, I have to give myself a little bit of grace, but it's not an excuse to not do the things that I needed to do. So like my life, when things are a mess in my life, I think I've talked about this before. Life is like a hurricane. We need to be the eye. But I was the hurricane. I wasn't the eye. So everything was just all over the place. What's the one thing we can control, right? For me, it's training, breathing, journaling, cooking, right? So when life is crazy, we have to give purpose where we need to. What are the things we can control? So yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to start with that. I want to open it up to anybody else if they've had similar experiences or feel the same way, or how their training's going, or what they're struggling with right now. Yeah, if not, I can keep going. Yeah, Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me on. This is my first call with you.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I think that the thing that sticks out to me is exactly what you said, how training really gives you purpose and keeps you grounded. The issue with, or that I've been running into is I too have been kind of, I guess, plagued with lots of injuries along my training career. And whenever that happens, obviously a rest and recovery is a huge component of that. And when I go through that initial stage of, okay, now I'm injured and I have to step back, it's so difficult knowing how much training is a part of my identity. So it's so difficult to then step back and take time off or rest and go through that stage, knowing that, what I do for myself or for my identity, my purpose, I can no longer do. So curious kind of how you've dealt with, injury or phases where you just can't contribute to that purpose.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I kind of we talk about like symptoms of disease, either mentally or physically, as I look at it as your body's way of having a conversation with you, that the environment you were in or that your body was in wasn't conducive to where you were trying to go. It's your body's like fail safes. They're trying to keep you safe and protect you. So sometimes injury is a way of like saying like, yo, you need to step back. We need to reevaluate the situation and we need to go back to the drawing board. But what happens with a lot of, I know for lifters is what they'll do is they'll take 6 weeks off. They don't actually address the issue. Then they go back to training, doing the same things that got them injured in the first place. So you have to look at it as like an opportunity. And it's hard, man. Like I've been dealing with an ankle injury for 20 years and I've still just avoided addressing what it needs to be. It's just your body's way of saying, hey, we need to try something else for a little bit. We got to just look at this from a different perspective. Not saying you can't train, you just have to change the manner in which you train. Because if you start looking at everything like training, so even like the spinal movement, like the movement guide I post in that, like moving your joints daily is training. Your training is preparing you for the life that you envision and the person that you want to become. So if you get hurt, your training wasn't, it's like a warning injury. It happened. Your body's like, yo, we're done, cutting it off. We got to do something else for a little bit. And it's not rest and recover. It's like, hey, we got to change the way we train. So I look at the same way with like mental health too. Like when we're feeling depressed or anxious or any type of other anxiety or impulsiveness, it's your body's way of trying to keep you safe. So like a kid who has ADHD, I was impulsive because the classroom maybe wasn't the best environment for my survival at that time. That's kind of how I try to look at those things, is where your body's just trying to keep you safe. So it's trying to communicate with you. So how can you have a conversation with it, and what's it trying to tell you? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's just my experience. That's my outlook on it is. And I only recently had that like 2-3 years ago. I used to just rest, and then I would go mash the gas again and then get hurt, rest, go mash the gas again, instead of, okay, yo, your body's trying to tell you something. These injuries keep piling up. Like, let's actually address what's going on. And then when I went to massage therapy school about 3-4 years ago, that's when I kind of changed my lens on how to approach injury, performance, and movement. Josh, what's up, buddy?
There it is. No, just on that note of identity and wrapping yourself up in the identity of that's for lack of a better word, exercise or movement. Like all through high school and college, I was the long distance runner, right? Just go out, pound pavement, and that was all I did. And it hit a point the last year or so of my marriage and there afterwards where it got out of hand. Like I turned into the 80-mile-a-week runner. I'd go out on the weekends for 20 miles at a time and got myself so wrapped up in the identity of being a runner and turned it into something terrible for me. Like it stopped being something that was good and healthy and started being the drug. Like first it was the escape from a failing relationship. And then when the relationship failed, it was an escape from the depression that I was in. And then it was, I have to go run every morning just to feel normal. Finally hit a point, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that like I'd done enough work on myself that I was able to step back and go, okay, let's baby step our way out of this and start taking more and more days where I'm not running. And got a point, and for a solid 2 years after I got to dialed it back to where I was running maybe 4 miles a week, but still for about a year and a half, 2 years after that, I would still tell people that I'm a runner because I had become so attached to that identity of this is who I am, this is what defines me. And it took a long time to realize that nobody gives a shit. Like if I run, if I don't, if I'm an athlete, if I'm competing in anything, like nobody cares but me. And so pouring all that energy into identifying with something that one became very unhealthy and two, something that I wasn't anymore. Working through that identity shift was one of the hardest things that I had to do. It's tricky, man.
Yeah, it is. And it's, we see this in powerlifting a lot. Like no one gives a shit about your total. No one cares ever how much you lift but you. And when it starts to take away instead of adding value, that's when we need to step back and like reevaluate. That's what I've learned is when it starts, and it's taken me a couple identity crises to figure out, like when training isn't fun and it doesn't add value, you need to reevaluate. Like I wrote an article for Elite a couple years ago called Breaking Up with the Barbell. Like I'll use it for like landmine work, but I still have like trouble doing any of the big 3 lifts. It's almost like I have no desire to put a bar on my back, bench press or deadlift. And like, it is. I don't, for running, I don't know how, have you stopped running altogether or?
Me personally, yeah, I have pretty much for the most part. Like the last time I went for a run, was, I guess, when I ran Murph on Memorial Day, and it was the mile run at the beginning and the end. And I mean, that was the moment where I'm like, okay, I'm not a runner anymore. Because I remember looking at my brother halfway through the first mile going, this is weird. This is terrible. Like a year ago, this was the easy part. And I'm half a mile into this, and I don't like this anymore.
Yeah.
And like that was kind of the moment of, okay, like I'd already moved on from runner as an identity, but that was also kind of the moment of, you know, okay, maybe there is benefit to cardio and mixing it in every now and then. But like for me and where I'm at now in my life, it's not just get out and run for long distances or a lot of time. Like I know in the back of my mind that if I ever need to, I can still dust that off and go run a 5 or 10K and I can make it through. It'd be fine. But kind of to your point, and it's something that, you know, we've talked a lot about in the group as a whole, just being more prepared for life, mixing in other forms of cardio has become my go-to. Like right now I'm on a little kick of jumping on a rower once or twice a week. You know, there was a while where it was hill sprints or, you know, assault bike intervals, but, you know, mixing cardio in every now and then just for the benefits of it, then the carryover to the rest of life and being better prepared for whatever life throws at me. That's where I'm at with cardio as a whole now. It's definitely not running.
Yeah. And that's part of why I like I'm choosing like to do this trail 10K is, one is I hate long duration zone 1, zone 2 cardio. It is the fucking worst and I can't stand it. But I also I'm impatient. I'm impulsive. I can't sit and do work for long periods without my brain going in another direction. So that's like one of the reasons I'm giving purpose. My training has purpose is to help me work on being patient, to work on being, hey, just slow and steady when you do something. You don't have to mash the gas. Like just be patient and play the long game with this. And then yes, like building that aerobic tank so you can go to St. Louis for a 15-mile hike and not have to think twice. Like, yeah, this will be easy. Like your tank's full.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, what's up, buddy?
It's
Hold on, you're muted. Hold on.
you're on mute, bud.
All right.
Josh, were you done?
Yeah, dude, all you, man. Take it away.
Fantastic. It's very interesting. And as you know, Nick was talking, you know, I kind of have a similar story. You know, in high school, I was a track runner, and so I was a sprinter. So you know, I never understood why anyone would want to run 20 miles when I could do, you know, several, you know, 200-meter sprints and be done with my workout. So I never really understood the whole long distance mentality. And then graduated high school at, you know, maybe 120, 125 pounds. And because of, we'll say, lack of self-esteem, I wanted to go to the gym because I thought the reason why I was single was because of my outward appearance. I had, you know, was lean and mean, but had no muscle. And so all through college, I became a gym bro, and I absolutely love, you know, the bro science training, the, you know, the chest day, back day, leg day, shoulders, arms, you know, all that. You know, that's my jam. And even, you know, this day, you know, here I am. You know, I've had a little bit of break just because I'm recovering from COVID and the fatigue from that. But, you know, it's been, you know, that's my jam. You know, I've never been a power lifter. I've never done CrossFit, you know, just give me a day where I do several chest exercises, several back exercises, you know, some arms, you know, that's my jam. And also, you know, for some of you who are able to take your passion for the gym into a career, that's also super fascinating to me because, you know, I'm a financial planner. And so, I wear a suit every day. Nobody knows what I look like. And you can hide a lot of, uh, less than optimal outward appearances under a shirt and tie and a suit jacket. And so it's been interesting. I've been doing this for 14 years now. Over that time, I started at about 160 pounds, bulked all the way up to 195, which is the most I've ever weighed. And then as time commitments between, having a wife and family, as I've not had the time available to dedicate to spending an hour and a half in the gym 5 days a week, I've shrunk back down to about 165 now. And even some clients are saying, man, you've really slimmed down. I'm like, that's not what I want to hear. So, it's been interesting, but I will always associate with kind of the gym bro identity. Even my wife, she's just texted me, well, what do you want for dinner? I'm like, how about chicken and rice? That's my gym, and I can have chicken and rice every day. But she likes variety. So that's my identity, even though in my life I wear lots of hats and I can't always wear the gym bro hat in all situations. But that's me to the core.
Yeah. And you've held on to that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Sean, you said like, making a living in the gym. I think most of us get started as coaches because we enjoy training, but then we realize like you can't make a living training. For me, and Sean, I think can attest, it's changing lives, right? I personally use strength and conditioning as the medium is which we use to change people's lives. It's the real life change happens between the sets and the reps. It's the conversations like this that like anybody can write a program, but it's being able to we help people, like that's what a coach is, right? Like a coach is something that takes you from point A to point B and helps you write a better story. So all my career choices, I originally wanted to be a teacher, became a paramedic. Then I was gonna go to med school. And then I saw like strength and conditioning as preventative medicine. It was all had to do with like, how can I help people with what I enjoy doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
And that's the same with me, like I might not be able to help you physically, but I'm trying to do my best to change lives financially and give them the tools that maybe they didn't have, whether that be through maybe their parents never talked about money. Maybe they make money, but they have no idea what to do with it. And they'd like to retire. They just don't know how. And the stock market scares them. So, that's what I do. Like you guys, we're helping people, changing lives. And that gets me excited every day.
Yeah, that's so cool. And that's why you and I are gonna have to have a chat. And I think you should have a talk with the group, because I think a lot of people, finances are very scary for people. My family, we didn't talk about it, and I'm not blaming my parents because I am an adult and I need to take it upon myself to learn more about it. But I've just spent 15 years learning about strength and conditioning.
I love it.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Sean.
Hey, Nick,
Go ahead.
I
Helen.
have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you see a difference between men and women?
As far as
Just the concept you're talking about.
No, I had the same conversation with one of my clients yesterday. This is kind of where this talk came from. She originally came in, she knew she had to take care of herself and she didn't know where to start. So she started with me. And everything we do in the group, I do with her: the journaling, the breath work, the cardio, right? So her thing was like, I hate walking. I know I need to do it. I know I got to get my steps in. So we talked about how we have to give the walk a purpose. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. right? Like if you, I am all for the health benefits, but don't waste time doing something that like isn't getting you closer to who you want to be or where you want to be. So she struggles with being present. So for her walks, she needs no phone. No, she can bring a notebook with her, like a small notebook and a pen. And I just told her, hey, I just want you to look at nature. I want you to like literally just look at the trees, look at the colors, look at the sky, look at the birds, and just work on being present. Like you can focus on your breath with your steps. Just look and be in the moment. And so now we've given her walk instead of just for her health. She struggles with being present. So most, as you get longer into doing coaching, like there's not a lot of differences between men and women. It's just psychology. And I think Kyle can say the same for money. If you can understand human psychology, you can speak well, doesn't really matter your career, you can help anybody. And I think that's what it comes down to, is most humans have the same wants and needs. The conversations might be different, but the outcomes are typically similar. Yeah. The way I might talk to her is going to be a little different than, a man. Right. And that's just knowing your clients and knowing that just comes with experience and talking and working with people for forever. But at the end of the day, yeah, everybody, we do the same things. Just being a good conversationalist. Dave, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, like, I'm kind of going through something similar in the last few years, just always falling back into the kind of negative feedback loop where I'm getting hurt and then I jump back on and not do the things that are necessary to.
Hold on, you're muted, Dave. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good. You cut out there.
Yeah, just wondering if some of the specific things that you did to just kind of get out of that, because it's very similar with everyone that's been on here, is I've identified as something always, and like I can jump from identity to identity, but it's if I'm kind of in between, then I feel lost, and then I go back to something that's familiar. And I was just wondering, like, what are some of the I don't know, tools you've used to kind of get out of that like to get away from the identity of yourself as a power lifter or strongman competitor or fill in the blank?
That's a good question. Journaling, like figuring out who I am as a person, right? Like, so I said, like, I identified as a power lifter, but I'm not a power lifter. I'm me. Who am I? Right? Who are you? What? And I think that's kind of what a lot of people in this group is like. We feel lost because we don't know who we are and we don't know where we're going. But it's like the work that we do with the journaling, the conversations that we have in these, the weekly phone calls that we have with other people is really just having those tough conversations many of us avoid having with ourselves, is finally sitting down to have those conversations. Why am I falling back into a negative feedback loop? I don't know. For me, it was because either I was scared to do the work, didn't want to do the work. I was comfortable. It was comfortable. Like, I think Josh, same with like Josh, I was comfortable blaming my ankle, blaming my knees, blaming my ADHD. Like, that was my identity. But deep down, I knew that was bullshit. Well, why is that bullshit? Like, so I think journaling, the breath work is really helpful. And then just having these conversations and knowing that you're not alone and that we were all there or are there at some point has helped me immensely, being surrounded by like other people in this group and knowing like we're all different, but we've all had very similar experiences. And then just asking questions like that, right? Like, what I've also found, like, when I don't tie it into something bigger, like a higher purpose, right? So like when I wanted to take my own life, that was me being selfish. And the thing that stopped me is like, if you're not going to do it for yourself, there's people out there you haven't met yet that need you. So you need to take care of yourself so you can take care of others, right? Like, so I looked at it as I can't be a liability. When I saw this when like COVID happened, like I can't be a liability for my wife, my kids, and my family by not doing the things I know I need to do. And like, if I'm not going to do it for me, I owe it to them, right? So finding something higher to tie it into, because motivation will always be fleeting. That's why we have
Yeah,
to.
I'm kind of in that spot right now because I'm a firefighter and like I don't like doing a lot of the things that are necessary to be a good firefighter physically. I like to be strong. I like to, I like the big three. I like that stuff. But like, then I get a gut check when I'm doing fire ground stuff and I get a little bit winded. I've always identified as the strong guy or the bigger guy. And now, like, I've thankfully in the last few weeks, just set out like one time when I'm off I call it a 4 day because I get 4 days off, is I do something that's like just a challenge that I know I'm going to want to quit. And that's helped out a little bit.
Well, here's the thing: is oftentimes we associate cardio with running. Cardio is anything that'll get your heart rate up. So like when I've worked with a lot of firefighters and police officers, but then also when I think of you guys are athletes, so you have to train similar to an athlete. Strength is a huge component, and like strength and aerobic work are compatible training modalities. So it's finding like work that you enjoy doing that will get your heart rate up. And then also as a power lifter, like having a huge base of GPP is going to allow you to do more work in the gym anyways. And aerobic work's typically what power lifters neglect the most, because like we take 5-minute rest periods. This isn't a marathon. Like but it's having, you can still be strong, but be in shape, because like for you, people's lives depend on you to be in the best shape. Doesn't I mean, like you owe it to them to arrive on scene in the best shape of your life, because their life depends on it. And that's what you signed up for when you became, a firefighter. So that's a programming talk that you need to have you can have it with me, or, find a coach to work with to help set up a plan that you're like, fuck yes, that's it right there. And something you can commit to, because you can still be strong as hell. And you can also run like a 6-minute mile. It's just finding something that works for you. And if you have injuries, like you have to address them. And then, the injury talk's a whole nother talk. Does that answer it? Is that what?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, your job depends on it, right? So that, to me, it's the same with my family depends on it. I'm no good to my community if I'm sick and out of shape, because let's say shit does hit the fan, like if you're a liability, like people, you're gonna be left. Like when they go to triage you, like you're gone. We're gonna leave you behind. We need the strong to help us move forward, like in the community. So people are gonna look for those strong-minded people, and being ready for anything. So like your training can be whatever you want it to be. Like for throwers, like their GPP work, we would do squat, bench, deadlift, 65%. We would do just 1 rep of each and just keep rotating through that for 20 minutes. So now you're getting technique work, you're getting your heart rate up, and it doesn't have to be super high. And that's how we would do aerobic work for our athletes. We just did stuff that they enjoyed doing.
I did something similar to that the other day. I did a deadlift. I did trap bar deadlifts, 1 rep every 30 seconds for 30 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just getting creative with those things. So, just got to get your heart rate up, and you can do 100 different things to do that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the self-talk, man, that's your words. So we always preach on like the words we use with other people, but we need to watch the words we use with ourselves. That conversation in between our head is the one conversation we have the most. It's the person we talk to the most. So learning, I think journaling. So the journal prompts Matt gave us, like what gives you enthusiasm, what drains you of your energy, and what did I learn about myself, is super helpful, because then you start to have these better conversations with yourself. And another one that I've added is like, what's one story from today? A 5-second story, because then you start to look for different stories throughout your day, and you can start to string things together. You start looking at things a little differently. So I really recommend journaling with those 3 prompts. And that'll help with like that talk. The talk is really important, the way we talk to ourselves, especially when we are injured or going through a rough time. Just learning to step back. Why are we upset? Why am I mad about this? Why am I depressed? Why am I being so negative right now? And like trying to be like a 5-year-old, right? Ask why. Keep asking why till you get to the bottom of like what's really going on. And usually around the third or fourth why, you'll come to a better understanding of what's going on. Yeah, it's the negative. So we have to ask why. Why are you negative? You know, why are you terrible with negative self-talk? You know, we have to figure out the root of that. And then how can we put things in, it's like, think of it like a habit, right? You've ingrained this habit of negative self-talk that it's always your go-to now. So how can we have, when you're starting to have these negative conversations, how can you put something in place to stop yourself and step back and be like, whoa, is this really advantageous to like moving me forward? So 3 more questions you can always ask is, what do I want? Why do I want it? And who do I need to become in order to achieve that? Right. So then now we have purpose. So when you get really clear on what you want, your actions need to align with that. Other than you don't really want it unless you don't really want it. Right. So Matt's talked about this. Like if you don't really want what you say you want, it's okay, admit it, but move on to figure out what you do want. But in order to get to where you want to go and who you need to become, like you're going to have to do certain things and become that type of person. So like for me, what is a good husband? Well, I don't know. What does my wife need? What do I need to do to become a good husband, a good father? What does that look like in my eyes? Because like I'm my son's role model. So I can't be in my band days anymore, right? Because my son needs a better role model, right? So then when these negative self-talk, hey, does this really what's best for the person you want to become? Is this who you want to become? Like, so starting to have different conversations with yourself helps a lot with negative self-talk. I don't know, does anything else work for other people? Because we've all experienced it. When anybody else having negative self-talk, like what are some of the things y'all do? Just me and Dave have the negative self-talk.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. One of the things that my dad has always taught me, you know, no matter how crappy things are, is, you know, how blessed we am. And when I was a teenager, I'm like, what are you talking about, Dad? Like my car just broke down. And still to this day, I always hear his voice, you know, it could always be worse. And so, you know, if I'm ever down, you know, I always try as best I can to take a step back and say, well, you know, I've got my health, I've got my roof overhead, I've got a job, family, you know, like whatever, you know, the things that are not directly correlated with what's causing this negative self-talk. And then that kind of allows me to reset my brain, focus on like what's important. And then it in a way, it's kind of like my reset. And then I can have a better mindset on how I'm going to approach and tackle this issue. Rather than, you know, well, this sucks and this sucks and this sucks, you know, my whole life sucks. No, you know, there's a lot of great things that are going for all of us. And yeah, we all got things that, you know, are not great, but, you know, it could always be worse. And how can we focus on the blessings that we have, even when, you know, things are not going our way?
Yeah, it's a perspective shift, right? And I think it goes back into earlier, like being the eye of a hurricane is like, what can I control right now? So like Sean says, like, what's it stemming from, right? And a big saying that had changed my perspective is like, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening? No, why is it happening for me? I always feel like this, and this is just like life just is, right? Like life just is. We are the ones that get to give life meaning. We choose how we get to view it. So when you start to look at it as, why is this happening for me? Or what is life trying to provide me with right now? Or what's the universe trying to teach me? Same as like a symptom when we get injured. What's my body trying to tell me? And this is just for my brain to be able to step back and be like, all right, what's the universe trying to teach me? And especially if things keep happening all the time, like the same thing keeps reoccurring, the same issues. To me, that's like life is really just trying to be like, yo, dude, like, hey, I'm trying to help you out here. And that's why learning to be present is helps you to just take a step back. Because sometimes if we're anxious, it's usually fear of the future. Depressed is looking at the back. And when we start to feel those things, we have to step back and be like, okay, I'm not present. Let's take a deep breath. Let's dive into this. Like Sean said, like, let's work through this. And that just comes from doing the work, right? So Dave, think about like squatting, right? Like, let's say you're a 500-pound squatter. You didn't get there overnight. So it's the same with like doing breath work, journaling, reading, anything else. You have to look at it as like training. So you can't start off by like, I'm going to write all this journaling stuff today and go, the January 1st crowd, they go 2 weeks in and they get burned out. Just start by writing a sentence. How do you feel? Right? Or answer those 3 questions, and just giving yourself these little tools, like to start building upon so you can work up to those things. Like you didn't squat 500 pounds overnight. You had to learn to, squat the bar first. Journaling seems daunting or it seems weird or whatever, but like for me, it's been super beneficial. And like, if you watch the Brandon Lilly talk that I forgot who posted it, but I know Johan's, he's got stacks of journals. Johan, stacks of journals. Matt, stacks of journals. Like, we're not preaching these things for you it's because they work. And I think journaling is one of the best ways. No one's going to read it. I mean, it's your personal journals. So that's with the negative self-talk is like, get that out in the journal and then dive a little deeper into why those words are showing up. Maybe it's your subconscious trying to tell you something. But don't lean into it, right? I think the Buddha, I forget what the story is, but he said, sit down and have tea with that voice. We talk about voices, right? Why is that negative voice there? Don't let it control you. Sit down and listen to it and have a conversation with it. But why, what's the voice trying to tell me? It's, that's another way you can look at it. Hey, okay, voice number 3 is here today. Let's have a conversation here. Sit down and have a beer with it, tea, whatever helps you. Okay, that demon's back. Let's sit down. But don't let it control you. It's there. It's once the voice is concerned. Okay, I see you. I hear you. All right, I'm good. I don't need you anymore. Just finding little tools like that are super beneficial. Josh, what's up?
Honestly, not a whole lot left to add to that. It goes back to a lot of that conversation we were having in the Discord today, following Sean's post, which dude, fucking fire post in there, and great conversation that came of it. But it's just, identifying that voice. I know for me, like a lot of times when that negative self-talk hits, it's somebody else's voice from my past piping up, reinforcing a negative emotion I have about myself. And once I can identify whose voice it is, I can shut it down. Another really useful thing for me that a lot of my anxiety and struggles are around my self-image and how I view myself. And so a lot of times when I do have that negative self-talk pop up, I remind myself, I want to say this. I am very fortunate now to have a partner who is very supportive, and she recognizes that one of my big love languages is words of affirmation. And so whenever I start to have that negative self-talk come up and that spiral start to happen, I think back to things that she tells me about me and remind and say, look, that is true. What you are telling yourself now is not. And that seems to help kick me out of that negative self-talk. So using the compliments and the kind words that others say about you can be very powerful as well.
Yeah. And Dave, I had a conversation with my buddy yesterday. He's a cop, and I'm not saying that this is you, but with a lot of cops and firefighters, they're very I'm a man, right? And they're not necessarily afraid to feel, but be okay with feeling things and being okay with being sad and depressed and like, but having your network that you're building here with us to like feel free to come talk to us, right? And anything that I had a talk on mental health a couple weeks back just about emotions, right? Like emotions are normal. We just sometimes we get too caught up in them that we identify as them instead of identify, like, again, like depression. I think we've all felt it or have experienced it to some degree. It's when it's said, I am depressed. It's the same as I am a power lifter. You're identifying as depressed. You're giving ownership to an emotion, right? And then when you continue to identify as that, then that's kind of becomes your identity. It's just having that perspective shift is like when we have these negative self-talks, like it is normal, let it be, but think of it as a cloud and then like let it go. And then like sit down and do a little bit of the work. So think of like, again, everything's training. Think of everything we do in here, the journaling, the breath work, the movement, the stuff in the gym it's just preparing you for life. And like, you have to remember you're a human. You're not a firefighter. You're Dave, the human, you're Dave. And you're not a power lifter, you're you. Those are things that you enjoy doing, right? So doing the work to figuring out who you are in the universe you want to live in and what you want, I think is going to help with like that negative self-talk, because it's coming from somewhere. I know mine did, because my ADHD. I mean, everyone thought I was going to be in prison. I would be arrested. I would had someone knocked. I mean, like my outlook wasn't good, but that's what everybody was telling me. So that's where a lot of my negative self-talk, dude, that shit was up until about 32, and that shit still creeps in. Right. So we just got to do some work and get to the root. And that could, if it's therapy, like whatever, just figure out what you need to do to, nip that shit in the ass, because if you don't do it now, it's just going to continue. And we'll be here in another year like, hey, Dave, what have you done for your negative self-talk? Right. And that was my thing too. Like the time's going to pass anyway. So I don't enjoy the negative lifestyle I have. So what can we do about it now? So I'm not dealing with this shit in a year. And when it does come up, what tools do I have to help work with it, not against it?
Yeah, this is a huge reason that I joined this, because therapy hadn't worked for me in the past. I didn't really, just kind of bring up old trauma, and I kind of relive it. But like what Josh was saying earlier, just about his partner with positive affirmation. My wife's the same way. She's amazing, but I still like, doesn't matter what goes on, I kind of have imposter syndrome when it comes to anything. I got promoted to captain this year, and my bosses, my battalion chiefs, are like, I asked them for an evaluation a couple weeks ago, and they were like, you're one of the best captains on our shift. We don't have to do anything for you. Keep going down the path. And I still go to work every week thinking I'm not a good captain, that I'm not doing enough. And so even when I get that positive affirmation, that voice just kind of overrides it. So that's the kind of things that I'm looking for out of this group, is just like, hey, what are those things? Because I've never tried journaling. I do a little bit of breath work just for my like low back stuff to try to de-stress, but I really haven't done any like guided breath work or anything like that.
The thing with the imposter syndrome, and we've all dealt with it, and Matt's got to talk on it, but it's like, why the fuck not you to be that captain? Like, you've put the work in to be in a position to do that, so why not you? And if it's not you, it's going to be someone else. So why not you? You've earned it, obviously. Like, when I was a medic, I've been involved with the fire service a long time. Like, you deserve it. Why not you? Like, I love like keeping yourself fresh and like, okay, I got to be better. I got to do better. But like, here's your hat you've been wearing, man. Like, if you don't think like you're good enough to do it, then maybe you don't. But I think you do deserve it, right? Either you do or you don't. And obviously everybody at work thinks you do. Imposter syndrome is normal. It means you're headed kind of in the right direction. But yeah, if you watch my breath video, I posted up most of my talks today. I talk about like the physiology of breathing. There's a little assignment at the end. If you do the assignment and text me, I give you like 4 weeks of breath work. If you watch the video. But you deserve it, man. Like that's another thing is like when we're working on things, it's like, why not me to do this? Why not me? Like time's gonna pass anyways. Why not you? You know, whatever your guys' vision or dream is, or your universe wants to look like. Why not you to live like that? I mean, that's what Matt does. Matt's got a fuck it mentality. Why not me to fucking build whatever I want? Heather, what's going on?
I was gonna say is, you know, when the thoughts come, right, sometimes you can just be like, okay, move on, get it out of our mind. Sorry. But what's challenging is when the feelings come, right? The feelings of I'm not good enough or depression or whatever comes. And one of the corniest things that has been working for me to just kind of take a step back is I just tell myself over and over, feelings aren't fact. Feelings aren't fact. And I just kind of say that in my head for a little bit. And sometimes it works to be like, okay, you know, this is why I'm feeling this way. And that really doesn't relate or kind of dictate or identify who I am or where I'm at or whatever it is that I'm doing. The other thing that works for me is I'm definitely very faith-based, but I have an amazing group of women at church. And, you know, when I get stuck in the feeling, right, of whatever it is, over the weekend, I was not this weekend before, like just feeling down, and I really couldn't get myself out of it, even with my feelings aren't fact kind of thing. I also go back to the Bible, right? Like God says this, right? You know, so when I feel a particular way, I try to think about, you know, what the Bible says about me. And, you know, I try to focus on that. And then I did that, and I still couldn't get out of my like depressed, shitty, you know, I'm worthless kind of mood. But when I felt like that and I couldn't do it for myself, what I did was reach out to that group, you know, and that took a long time because it really takes, for me, getting out of my ego and saying I need a little bit of help, right? And so when I go to these particular women, one, I know they're not, you know, gossipy, chatty women, so I could trust them with, you know, my real self as far as kind of what's going on internally. And I'm like, I just need some prayer, you know, kind of fill that gap for me until I can get there. But you know, it's taken me a long time to realize like I can't always do it by myself, and I don't always want to do it by myself. And so having that support that I can also trust, you know, with a lot of intimate stuff or vulnerable stuff, you know, and they don't necessarily, well, they will give words of affirmation, but it's also, you know, some scripture-based stuff that kind of, for me, you know, solidifies, right, standing on God's word to kind of get through where I'm stuck. And eventually, right, like by the end of the night, I'm like, okay, you know, and I was able to move out of the place that I was earlier in the day. But I initially start with feelings aren't fact. Like it might seem that way right now, but it's not true. It's just kind of a feeling, and that'll go too. So
Yeah, and that's what I really like about that is like you have to find your things. You know, for Heather, if it's like the faith base and the Bible and like her group of girlfriends, like we all have to find our things. And it's kind of like setting up a morning routine. Like you can't follow my morning routine is because I've done trial and error to figure out where I need to be. Here's what I've done to get where I need to go. And you just start to try things and experiment with things and try to figure out what works for you and what you like or don't like. And like those affirmations or those, you know, why is this happening for me type things You just kind of figure it out as you go, but you have to be proactive within it. I think is the biggest thing, and it's like the imposter syndrome. Mine's as soon as I start to have it, like it's why not you? Why not you? Why not you? Why not you? Why not you to build this? Why not you to be this coach? Why not you to do these things? And you kind of just try that, and if that doesn't work, you'll come up with something. We control those words between our ears I think that's what this stemmed from, is the conversations we have with ourselves. Like, it's weird. Like sometimes we're meaner to ourselves than we let anybody else in the world talk to us. Like for me, there's some things I say to myself, like I would never take that from anybody else. Like there's no way someone's going to talk to me like that. So why am I talking to myself like that? Like I need to respect myself that much. And that to me is a respect thing. Like we have to respect ourselves. Like you are who you are. Like just and that's, yeah, I think I can end there. Anybody else got anything to add? It's a very different talk than usual, huh, Sean? For a Tuesday. It was good.
It was still pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I like
Also, the vibe of you sitting in a dark room just really sets the tone.
Yeah, I could put the red lights on. Yeah, cool. Well, everybody that's new, welcome. That I think my biggest piece of advice is leverage the group. Hop on phone calls, hop into people's messages, have conversations. Like, I've been in this since the start. I believe Sean's been in here since the start also. And like, leverage the group, leverage the people in the group. You're going to find the people you connect with. You're going to get their phone numbers, and then that becomes your group of friends. Johans is one of my closest friends, and I've never met him. Right? I've never met him, and he's I talk to him daily. He's one of my closest friends. I've never met him in person. Leverage the group, hop on phone calls with people, and you'll start to see, like, that was my thing, is I was trying to do things alone. That's why I joined. One of the reasons I joined 1612. I didn't have a group. I didn't have any friends. Felt like, no, I guess I just didn't have my group. And that was what this is. So nobody's got anything. I will post this up in the group. I posted a bunch of my old videos up. Feel free to go through those. They're a little bit more like sciencey based. But if you have questions about training, lifestyle, we also just ask them. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for coming.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
There, guys.